Hello and welcome to the Squadpod latest chat, and hopefully we're going to be technology problems, but hopefully we'll be able to rectify those. Can you hear
Hello.
me?
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Hurrah!
Sorry about that.
That's
Hi guys. Hi Karen.
okay. Hi, great to see you. No, great. I had to do that really scary thing where you go out and back in again and just hope that it all works. So,
We're here. It's all fine. Thank you
that's
so
really
much for
good.
having me along. It's
That's
great to
okay.
chat.
Thank you. I'm trying to adjust my thing because I seem to have got, I can only see half of my head in my picture. I don't know if you can see all of me. Or...
I've got half. Got the
Yeah,
other
no, I
half.
know. I need to go a bit higher, I think. It's just, yeah.
You sort of end up like this, like a meerkat, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Otherwise, it's like, and I've got this really rubbish camera stand that like just falls
Oh, that's
over.
quite
And
advanced though. Yeah, I'm balancing mine on a copy of my book. So.
no, really, oh, that's good. I've got like a sort of like a ring light, but actually, do you know what? I think I'm going to go without it because I think it's rubbish. Down. Yes, so there we go. That's better. There you go.
Oh,
Right.
thank you.
Oh, now I've moved. This is. Oh, sorry. We'll get there in a minute. I love technology. Actually, it's not technology tonight. It's
The
equipment.
physical element.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I joined TikTok recently, and I spent a lot of time balancing my phone in weird places. Don't really know what I'm doing on there. Yeah, it's a whole new thing.
I thought I'd got there then, and then all of a sudden it just collapsed. There we go. Right. Okay.
Perfect.
Hello, welcome, and
Hi.
thank you for everybody for joining us. I can see lots of people who have popped in and to say hello.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining us
No, thank you for
this
having
evening
me.
to talk
It's
about
so great to see you.
your gorgeous book that I have here, The Birdcage Libraries, because you can see it on the side, which is out next Thursday, I believe.
Yes, it is. Yeah, scary times. I don't know why books always come out on a Thursday, but here we are.
No, I know. It just seemed to be the day, and like there's days, isn't there, where you get like some Thursdays are like mega Thursdays. I think there's a Thursday in like September, like
Yeah, the
where all the Christmas
super
books. Yeah.
Wednesday, exactly. Yeah, it seems slightly terrifying, that whole thing. So here we are in summertime.
Exactly, yeah. So hopefully everybody's come to join us because it's nice and cool inside and not sweltering outside. And I see that you've been on like a trip, haven't you, today? Was that yesterday? Today? Or
Yeah, yesterday and yeah, well, many days, but yes, I've been up north and I'm visiting lots of lovely booksellers, and yeah, I'm going up to Scotland tomorrow. I mean, the book is mostly set in Scotland, so that felt like an appropriate thing to do. Say hi to the guys up there.
yeah.
So yeah, really exciting to do that.
Brilliant. So the Birdcage Library, would you like to tell us about it in your own words, so for people who don't know about it?
Yeah, sure. I've actually got a finished hardback here, so it's sort of very pretty. My contribution to the cover, by the way, the masterminds at Headline did the whole thing. But if you look very closely, you'll see like some little spots of blood on that feather. That was
you?
me. That was my like total contribution to the whole thing. But yeah, so the Birdcage Library. It's my second novel after The Dictator's Wife last year, and it's a kind of a gothic mystery / bookish treasure hunt. A female explorer and botanist discovers an old book hidden in a Scottish castle, and it contains clues about the fate of this woman who vanished 50 years before. So it's dual timeline set between a Scottish castle and Gilded Age Manhattan and an exotic animal emporium in that city.
I know, it's just one of those books that you don't need to just, you don't actually need to be very far into it before you realise that you're going to be sucked in, drawn in, completely enveloped by the whole thing. It's so somebody. I was talking to one of the squad pod this morning about it on the bus on the way to work in the glamorous life that I lead.
Honestly, I've been on many trains the last few days. Yeah.
But they said how layered it is, and it is, isn't it? There's so many layers to it, and we'll come on to sort of how you managed to do that. But what was your sort of initial inspiration for the book?
So, well, actually, it came about while I was researching The Dictator's Wife, actually. I came across this Italian proverb, which was talking about a history of caged birds. And the proverb goes, the songbird in its cage sings not for joy, but for rage. And I thought that was such a brilliant sort of idea. And that became one of the epigraphs of the book, actually. And I discovered these two real life brothers who dealt exotic animals back in the day, in the Gilded Age, and how they started out selling canaries, and then they ended up selling zebras and hippos to P.T. Barnum and all this crazy age of the circus. And I thought that was fascinating. I thought I must remember that. And then after I'd written The Dictator's Wife, I'm named after an explorer called Freya Stark. My dad met her back in the 70s. She was in her 80s and still traveling. She was this incredible woman who was an intelligence official in World War II, kind of a pioneer in terms of sort of the Western exploring of the Middle East. And yeah, I came across her desk in this country house, and it was circular, like a map of the globe. And I just thought, I have to write about a female explorer. I mean, I'm already named after one. I haven't taken up after an explorer in any other way of my life. So I might as well give this a go. And so I kind of met that. That became the Emily Blackwood's timeline, my female explorer, and that got married with Hester Vogel, my wife of the exotic animal dealer in the other timeline.
Because I think that was one of the things I was going to ask you, and actually it was going to be a question for further on, but actually it sort of fits in nicely with sort of the main sort of characters in the book are women, and that sort of, they're strong women, aren't they? So you've got your explorer, and you've got Emily, she does a job that's not, it's 1930s in her timeline. So that was still a time when women traditionally were at home, weren't they? And, not doing the jobs that both of those women did. And so was that important for you? Did you want to sort of be able to give them that ability to be these sort of, trends?
To be kind of badasses.
Yeah, exactly. Badass women, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was reading about all these incredible women who were adventurers around that time. And even before, it kind of started earlier than I thought. There's the likes of Isabella Bird in the 19th century, and then there's pioneers in terms of mapping the world, like Gertrude Bell, as well as Freya Stark, these early conservationists like Harriet Hemingway. Like, I didn't know, for example, that there's a kind of conservationist theme in the book. I didn't know that the RSPB and the Audubon Society, which is this kind of American counterpart, were founded by women. So I wanted to sort of pay tribute to that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to write just a straight, strong woman character. I don't feel like I know any of those women. I certainly don't feel like any of those were like one of those women. And so, the kind of thing about Emily is, yes, she's an explorer. Yes, she's going out into the world, but she's really running away from herself and her problems at home. It's not so much about the adventure as the escape for her.
I think there's lots of comments sort of coming in saying people are loving it, and and that must be really great for you to hear with a week to go, because obviously this is, I guess, is the most nerve-wracking bit for you, the sort of pre-publication.
I'm very relaxed, Karen. I'm really chill.
You look really relaxed, really calm, and but is it, because obviously when The Dictator's Wife came out, I guess as your first book, it's scary, but I guess, I don't know, is it scarier, the second one, because the first one did well and you're like, I really want this one to do well as well? So is there more pressure on the second one? Or?
Well, not until you said that just now.
Sorry.
No, it's funny because I sort of, it's not my first rodeo, but 2 rodeos is still quite a low number of rodeos, right? So it's I feel like I know a bit more about the process. It's not this kind of, oh my God, what is this train coming down the tracks at me? But at the same time, it's like, I guess it's not pressure. It's actually nicer in a way, because when I'm talking to booksellers and so on, they kind of know a little bit about who I am. I'm not just coming to them completely cold. So I would say it's been a nicer, slightly more relaxed process this time around, which is great. So maybe I can enjoy this.
Yeah, well, I think I think from like other authors have said that you never really, because I guess every time you sort of write that new book, it's like your baby, isn't it, going out into the wild. So it's never, I don't think you're ever going to get to the stage where it's just like, oh, it's another book, just off you go.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, it's important to know what you can control as well. Like I can only write the book and, you know, talk to as many people as I can about it. You can't control how people feel about it, and that's, you know, obviously a good thing. So yeah, you have to leave that room, I guess.
So the family, the sort of the Vogel family, have many secrets going back many. We're not going to give too much away because we obviously want people to read it if they haven't read it. But when you sort of set out to write the book, did you know, you obviously had sort of ideas that you've said that, you know, definitely sort of influenced and inspired your writing of this story, but did the characters come quite quickly, or was it more of a slower process that evolved as you wrote?
Yeah, it's interesting. So Hester came very easily. So Hester Vogel, my exotic animal dealer's wife, she came very easily. This idea of this sort of free spirit who's hemmed in by her time. I wanted the theme of the book to be like kind of the cages that we build others, but also the ones that we build ourselves, and those kind of being almost the stronger ones. So she came very easily. She was kind of sitting in my head, and I knew that she needed a counterbalance. I knew she needed somebody in another timeline. And Emily took a while, actually. I really had to work for her. She sort of
Really? Because I sort of, yeah, I would have thought, in my head, I sort of thought she would have been like, you're right, this is her, yes. But yeah, that's interesting.
Well, yeah, I'm glad it didn't come across that way. But yeah, lots of sort of long walks where I'd end up talking out loud unwittingly, and sort of people going, "Hi, Freya, what are you doing?" So yeah, getting to know my characters. Yeah, I would say character development is actually one of my least favorite things to do as a writer, which isn't great. It's something that I've spent a long time sort of working through methodically before I realized actually that the way to, you know, create somebody isn't to, you know, write down what color their eyes are and what kind of cake they like. It's to spend loads of time with them. So in the end, once I figured that out, it came a bit more easily.
So what, on that point, what is your favorite point, sort of setting the scene and the sort of setting and that type of thing? Is that what you like doing the most?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for mood, as you may have noticed.
Yeah.
Like, I love an atmosphere, I love a bit of gothic vibe, and so on. I think it's the actual, maybe this sounds a bit woo-woo, but the actual point of creation that I love, and that's really why I write. I mean, obviously that applies to everything. Like, everything is kind of new, but you know, when an idea clicks into place, or like a feat, you know, when thinking about, you know, for example, the theme of imprisonment, when something slots into place mentally, yeah, just for a second the world makes sense, and you're like, yes, grab it, and then it stops making sense again, so pretty quickly. But yeah, it's those moments that I live for.
I think it's, as a reader, it's always so fascinating to read a book like yours, because you just, I just think you have to try and, you know, you try and sort of think to try and get inside your head, because it's just like, so, you know, it's so layered and so, like, I think, how do you have that in your head?
well, thank you very much. I think it's like onions have layers, books should have layers, you know. I feel a bit like Shrek here. There's a Shrek reference swimming around here somewhere, but yes, more layers. Yeah, I enjoy that, and you know, I think the world itself is complex and subtle, and has, you know, endless nuances and misunderstandings, and if I can sort of try and bring that in some way, then that's good. But at the same time, you know, I'm a sucker for a good plot. You know, books like Lady Audley's Secret and so on really sort of pulls me through this time. So yeah,
I think that sort of, so we'll go, so the castle, is it Paris? It's sort of Paris. How do you say?
Where Scottish people email me. Paris, yeah, is how I.
Paris, yeah.
It's gay.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to get in trouble with the Scottish people either. Anybody Scottish there, please, sorry, apologies for our pronunciation of Paris. So is the castle that she goes to, Emily goes to at the beginning of the book. She's invited there by Charles, and when she, so what sort of, it's set in Scotland, and it's, so how important was that sort of, to be set in Scotland? Was it inspired by anywhere in particular, or
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love Scotland, particularly the West Coast. Like I've been going there for years. I got married there, outdoors on a
well,
windy day. So I
are
bought
they
my
always windy?
well, yeah, that's true. But I sort of bought my dress before I realised I was going to be getting married outside. So it kind of was a bit of a Mary Poppins, about to be blown away situation. So yeah, and that setting kind of almost preceded Emily's plot, because I felt it's so atmospheric. The train journeys up there that you take, it's just so
Yeah.
beautiful, and so I just thought, I have to do something around this country. So
Yeah.
yeah, there were definitely real life castles like inspired Paris, which means paradise in the Gaelic.
Yeah.
So Eileen Dunham is the famous one. I'm mangling all these pronunciations. I've tried to learn how to say them, so apologies. There's also Castle Stalker, which is Monty Python, but then there's lesser known ones like the Hermitage, which is in the borders where my husband's family are from. And that coastline and those locks, those sea lock mystery. That, I mean, Scotland is such a land of stories. It really lends itself to myth and legends, and this bloody past with all its sieges. You can go on and on. So yeah.
I think the castles as well. A castle as a setting, it's got that sort of, it lends itself so well to the sort of the Gothic element, doesn't it? As well as, and although this castle is called Paradise, it actually is a bit ironic, isn't it? I think we can say that.
I think that's not spoiling too many things. Exactly. I mean, that's the great thing about castles. They're built to keep people out, but they're kind of also built to keep people in, maybe. So there's that double-edged sword, which goes back to, the cage and so on. I read something which said the point of cages is not only to incarcerate, but also to display, and that second element can almost be more punishing. And I just wanted to continue that theme of encirclement and being locked in. Yeah,
it's actually Haley, Haley, one of the squad, said that she was, there was many references to cages in the book, sort of both literal and sort of metaphorical, and she said, do you believe that we all have a cage, and of our own making, and is that just part of the human condition, really, that we do that?
Yeah, I love that. I think we do. I mean, I certainly do. And I think we all, by our, whether it's by our background or the people we surround ourselves in, or the goals that we give ourselves. I think definitely. I don't know anybody who's not like that. I think you'd have to be a pretty strange sort of person. Maybe you'd be great, but maybe you'd also be, almost a sociopath. I don't know. I don't know. Just don't know anybody without it, without that complexity.
I was sort of thinking when you were saying there about displaying, and I was thinking about like how some people would be, like you say, prohibited by their cage of of themselves, but actually there are some people who also are on display, isn't there? So there's, if you think about quite a lot of the celebrities, you almost are there like in their sort of gilded cage of here I am.
Exactly. I know. And I almost called the book, if it hadn't already been taken, I might have called the book The Gilded Cage, because it's just that, especially that era of like spectacle and all these rich people on display, the Vanderbilts and the Astors and so on. Yeah, it's exactly that kind of time, this era of spectacle, The Greatest Showman. Yeah.
And so how difficult was it to sort of write those complete sort of characters? So you've got this sort of castle in Scotland that's very dark and Gothic and lots of secrets and lots of things going on that have happened in the past, and then to sort of link with that, you've got Hester's story, which is sort of written in her voice. I think we can say that. And so how difficult was it to sort of write the two sort of side by side in a way? I know it's
Yeah, well, I wasn't above Googling how to write a dual timeline novel. So right at the start, I was like, how am I going to order this? Am I going to write one and then the other? Or am I going to sort of write, sort of one, then, sort of intersperse them? I found it easier to, write, chronologically rather than, writing one timeline and sort of mushing another one in,
Yeah.
just in terms of the rhythm of the book. And then, yeah, again, it goes back in terms of the voice. Again, it goes back to, yeah, really getting to know my characters and spending time with them. And it just, you know, it evolved as the book went on. And then obviously I had to go back and sort of re-engineer the whole thing in the way that
Yeah.
you know, I always seem to end up doing. Yeah, and what frustrates me is when I read multiple character novels, first person perspectives, and they don't have different voices. I think that's really important as a writer, to be able to give that integrity to different characters if you're going to do that first person thing. So I tried, you know, who knows if it's been successful, but yeah, that was the aim.
Yeah, no, I mean it is really fascinating, and I always sort of really enjoy knowing whether, you know, whether, because some people it's very different, in as much as some people do write them, so they'll write one bit and then they'll write another bit, but and it, you know, I think either work because obviously they flow along, and this one does, you know, it flows, and I guess the editing it helps with that as well, because you obviously don't just like knock it out of the park in the first time you do it, do you? As much as you do.
Like first time, yeah, every time, first time. No, God. Yeah, no, so much editing. So,
but does the editing process did the editing process with this one change anything dramatically? Can you remember sort of from your first draft that there's something that you didn't put in, or something that wasn't there and then you put in afterwards?
Yes. So the treasure hunt itself,
Yeah.
which, you know, so basically there are clues. Hester leaves clues for Emily, which
Yeah.
help, which Emily must work through in order to discover what happened to Hester. And that the nature of that changed a lot. So that's now kind of but it's still bookish, but in a previous iteration it was a bit different. It was more sort of themed around early detective novels. There was sort of clues based around these early works, like the Leavenworth case and Revelations of a Lady Detective. I went off in a bit of a side alley there. So, and in the end we decided it was a little bit you know, obscure, not quite working, so then it's now in its previous iteration, but in its current iteration. But yeah, certainly nothing on the scale of The Dictator's Wife, which I rewrote from the third person to the first person. So thankfully, yeah, that was a fun day when I started doing that.
Because
so, yeah,
I think when I started this one, I wasn't sure what it was, which I liked. You know, I knew it had books on the cover, so yeah, that was a good tick. And then when I read the blurb and I found out it was about a book within a book, that was another tick. And then it had a castle and the gothic, but yeah, so like you said, it's a treasure hunt. It's got mysteries, but there's also some sort of, you know, quite dark. There's a bit of dark, you know, quite a bit of darkness in it as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because Charles Vogel is a complex character. He's in his 80s, isn't he? He's
Heinrich Vogel, yeah, he's in
Heinrich.
his 80s.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Heinrich. Yeah. I'm thinking Charles is Hester, and yeah, I'm getting. Yes, so he invites Emily to come to the castle, and she doesn't know the reason why. She's been working for somebody else, and she gets invited, and as you say, she's got her own issues, I think we can fair to say.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Yeah.
So she comes along and she doesn't really know what she's sort of letting herself into, is she, when she arrives?
Yeah.
Did you sort of, because he is, yeah, I don't really know how to describe him, but he's complex. I think complex covers him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Was he difficult to write? Did he?
Yeah, he sort of evolved in bits and bobs, because, you know, there's lots of faintly odd, musty, slightly creepy old men in literature. So how do you create your own slightly odd, faintly creepy, musty old man? Is an interesting one. And again, it's one of those things that, like, there's so much of writing, which is partly the frustration but partly the magic. It's, you can't just sort of direct your energies at it. You kind of have to crab walk into it, sort of, or I do anyway, like sort of just pick up things on the periphery, and then you think, aha, you know, sort of turn around and grab them. So yeah, for Charles, actually, for Heinrich, the inspiration actually weirdly came from an exhibition I went to on Disney and the Belle Epoque. And obviously, and yeah, that was it had all these beautiful sort of really a characteristic feature of that era is these clocks and ornaments with these twisting patterns all over them, and I sort of made that Heinrich's jacket. He has all these jackets with embroidered beasts upon them, and that kind of became the key to his character for me. I don't know why. I never really think about how characters dress normally, but here we are.
Important to him, yeah. And I think because I think quite early on, I can't say too much, but something happens and you think, oh well, that's happened already. I mean, she's only just got here and something happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't see that coming. So
treasure hunt sorted. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was like, well, how can that? And then I was like, well, maybe there's something. Yeah. So yeah, I really like that sort of the treasure hunt, but also the mystery, and then that brings us on nicely to Hester, she's a really interesting character because she's basically just on the page, isn't she? In a way, she's just
exactly.
We do meet her, but we don't meet. She's not in that time. In this time, is she in the book? So So can you tell us a little bit about her, or how she came about, or?
Definitely, yeah. So yeah, you're right. She lives on in the diary. That's where you hear her voice. Emily is reading the diary, and that's how you encounter her. I really sort of fell in love with her quite early on. The folder in my computer was called Hester, and it still is called Hester, even though I don't really know why that happened, but yeah. So she is again, a sort of woman who's a product of her time, but also kind of struggling against that, and what that means. So her father is a cage maker, and when the American Civil War comes along, he's conscripted, and she is forced because, and this is true, the US government banned or restricted use of steel for all but armament, weaponry making, except for the making of corsets, which again is a real exemption. They decided that American women still couldn't be.
They just need a small waist. Yeah,
exactly. They still needed that in the time of war. So okay, priorities. So Hester has the idea to convert the cage factory into corset factory, and obviously, the idea that corset is little more than a cage. And when she marries Charles Vogel, she really thinks that she's, and moves to New York. She thinks that she's embarking on an adventure. This man imports exotic animals. He's a man. He's got access to all this freedom. And it doesn't pan out that way. And from the start, I wanted to, her timeline, before I even knew what this book was, I wanted to be a story of a marriage sort of slowly disintegrating, at which point my husband gave me a few sort of looks.
Well, I'm just kidding.
No, just doing research here. So yeah, and so I felt very protective of her, really, when I was writing about her and her trials.
Yeah, I really liked her. I thought she was a really interesting character, and I thought that obviously as you go through the book, you find out more and more about her, and as you say, how her life it doesn't work out the way that she thinks it's going to. How did you sort of do because obviously there's a lot of research that's gone into this book. How long did it sort of take you to do from sort of the idea to the research to now?
Oh God, PTSD as I relive how long it took. So the problem with doing, and I realised this, and the problem with doing a dual timeline historical fiction novel is that you basically have to research two books, except you only get one book at the end, so it's kind of double the work for the same amount of output. Next time I'm just going to set it in current timeline in the Maldives or something and go do my research there. I don't know. I think that book just needs to be told. So it took a lot of time, and also particularly because my plots sort of come back through research. I like to I sort of only know what I'm looking for as I discover it. And also to have, if you're basing something in historical historical reality, then that's a helpful in that you can learn things, and that can feed the book, but also can be a hindrance in that you're like you know, obviously there are those limitations from that time. So it probably took me about, I probably was researching for a good 4 months, and that kind of was in dribs and drabs as I, you know, built up what I wanted from the plot, plus of, you know, sort of few months plotting in and around that. So yeah, it wasn't what you call a quick process, but I don't think that's probably why you go into writing books for the short one.
I think I mean, you can obviously tell the amount of detail in it, but actually it's really interesting when you say about sort of that historical, because did you find that sort of restricted your writing at any time? Did you feel like, oh, I can't do that because that wouldn't have happened, or were you just like, well, I'm going to do it anyway?
Yeah, well, so it's Emily's timeline. I originally had so it's now in 1932, 33. And originally it was going to be actually around the time of the First World War, but then I realized I wanted to have as the catalyst for her story, Lord Walter Rothschild, whose collection now forms the Natural History Museum at Tring. He's a real very colourful character, who once had a horse-drawn carriage drawn by zebras, for example. I knew I wanted him in the book.
Yes, I've heard of him. Yeah, I didn't know I knew that there was. I know about the guy with the zebras. Yeah,
yeah, that's him. He's super colourful, absolutely fascinating, and once had 2 live bear cubs delivered to his father's bank. At which point, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
That's enough now.
Yeah, exactly. Enough with the bear cubs, you know, not again. So I knew I wanted him, and so that very specifically happened in 1932, I think it was 33, and so I had to have her timeline based all around that, and that was actually quite useful in that I wanted that shadow of the Second World War as a kind of dramatic irony to sort of loom over it. Most of the time I find the actual historical reality is a plus, and it sort of enables more things because you think things you never would otherwise have thought of. But yeah, sometimes you're like, okay, do you reorient the truth a little bit, or do you just have to go with it?
Well, I think it's fiction, isn't it? So most people will read it, and although I know from other authors that that's not always the case, some of your readers can be very critical if you write something about something and it didn't happen, or it didn't happen, or you don't know if it didn't happen or not.
Exactly.
But, so with the 4 months of researching, was there anything that you sort of discovered that you hadn't, you know, was there lots of things that you discovered that you put in the book that you hadn't originally thought of, or was there one thing in particular that sort of really, you know, stuck out for you and you were like, right, that's got to go in no matter what?
Yeah, exactly. Well, a couple of things. I guess first of all, the animal collecting trade at that time and the plume hunters is just extraordinary. I mean, this was only just over 100 years ago. And they were killing millions and millions of birds to put in hats, feathers being, and whole stuffed birds on your head being all the rage. And it got to a point where, you know, species were being driven to extinction, because the best time to catch when the plumage is brightest is usually the breeding season and the nesting season. So you wholesale slaughter, entire flocks. So that scale, at this time when feathers were worth more than their weight in gold, I really wanted to put in there. And also this kind of, there's a lot of wonder around this time that, you know, going to Africa and killing your lions and bringing back the cub. They'd always kill the parents and bring back the baby, which, you know, pretty dreadful. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, they don't see any problem with that. They just see it as, oh, how fascinating, how wonderful these beasts are. So capturing that mood, that strange contradiction of beauty and horror really felt quite important to me. Yeah,
because I think but you only have to look around like some of our museums, you know, now, and I know some of those collections have gone, but as a child I definitely remember going around to museums and seeing these animals that had got shot by so and so, you know, and you know, they have like beautiful, you know, lions and you know, then you've got the whole taxidermy thing and, you know, giraffes and all those sorts of things that were brought back here from like like you say, African safaris. As well, they were trophies, weren't they? Really, it
Yeah.
was sort of a sort of a class. You know, it was a sort of a, what's the word? Prestige. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. And now that just seems really abhorrent to us. But I guess back then it was just, you know, what they did.
What you did, exactly. And it's, yeah, exactly, this whole kind of colonial past and so on just felt very fascinating. But you know, we tell ourselves we're civilized now, and actually the birds of paradise of Papua New Guinea are under much more threat now than they ever were because of deforestation. So, you know, is this that interesting thing where we think we're better, but I don't know, are we?
No, I'm not sure we are really. So
different.
what was the most difficult part of the book to write? What was the bit that sort of kept you awake, or you were like scribbling it out? Oops, I can't do this.
Just one bit, or can I have?
Well, yeah. I mean, as many bits as you like, but
the whole book. No. What would I say? I think the creation of Emily's storyline took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. You know, just figuring out what that plot looked like and what the twists and turns were, and what the sort of key to unlocking her identity is. That, you know, it sort of, when it was very fits and starts, it would come and sort of, I'd be like, oh my god, yes, and then nothing, and then sort of another revelation sort of weeks later. So yeah, that definitely kept me occupied. And then once I had that in place, actually the book wasn't too bad to write, she says.
Did you so do you relate to any of the do you think there's any of you in any of the characters, or do you think because I guess it's difficult not to, because you're writing it, but yeah, is there anybody, do you sort of, is there anybody that you do, I have to say if I don't want to, but is there anybody that you sort of like relate to more in the book?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess both of the characters, the lead characters, are trapped in their own way, and I was writing this book in lockdown, right? So there was a whole, you know,
so yeah,
there was that. But yeah, it's hard not to put yourself into characters, you know, and even if, you know, I'm not an explorer, I'm not you know, a woman struggling with her, you know, being trapped in a home or anything like that, but you know, of course, as a writer, you know, you have to put in how it feels to be sad, how it feels to be desperate, how it feels to be to feel alone. And so, you know, and I guess that's the emotional labor of it, is reaching into yourself and yanking out all these quite hardcore emotions. Oh my god, is this therapy or is this making it worse? I don't know. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of me in the book, but I'm also not Emily or Hester. So,
no, but it's, I mean, like you say, it's inevitable, isn't it? Because you will write as your emotions are as well, isn't it? So how you feel about, you know, I mean, obviously you can sort of try and get, but I guess it just comes out anyway. And is your husband one of your beta readers? Does he sort of read? Is he having to like will you on, or like, I'm not doing this anymore?
Oh my god, honestly, it was, yeah, if you thought the first book was bad, this one was quite hardcore, honestly. I learned the phrase "dusband" recently. Have you heard this? Like a husband who does stuff. So, I mean, like, you think that would be a low bar, but yes. So I recently discovered this phrase, and that's exactly what he's you know, just took on so much when it was tough. I owe him a huge amount. Didn't help that at the time I was writing about this failing marriage. So but,
he's like, oh well, I better get the Hoover out.
Exactly. But no, he's very much one of my beta readers, as are my poor parents, who must have read it sort of 4 or 5 times each. You know, so yes, much foisting upon them.
Are they all brutally honest with you? Or do you like get it sent off and then go to the editor and then they're like, what?
Exactly, I know. Well, when I sent it to my mum, and she read it, she was like, oh, for the first time, I really thought, you know, you are a writer. And I was like, excuse me? And she was like, no, I just thought, you know, your first book, you know, it can be a fluke. You know, I thought maybe, you know, you had one book, but now it turns out you have more than one book. So I know you're going to be able to do this. And I was like, okay, sure. So
a mum thing to say, isn't
Such
it?
a mum thing, honestly. I was like, I think I'm flattered. I think.
Yeah,
So
I think that's well done. I think you've done good. Yeah.
I think there's a compliment in that. I'm just going to take
Yeah.
that. So yeah, they are fairly honest, but I've also learned to take what they think with a pinch of salt, which I think is important. So,
So I was really when I was reading it through, and you talk about the Audubon book of American Birds, or Birds of America, because they've got those in Liverpool, haven't they? In the Liverpool, they've got one of them in the Liverpool library.
Oh my God, I was just in Liverpool this week. Damn,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
It's massive. It's got like it's like in a box, it's in a cage. But I think they do have, and if anybody's here from Liverpool, they do have like times where you can go in and they have like special when you can go in and like turn the pages, because their reading room is extraordinary in Liverpool Library. It's like they've got this really modern building, and then they've got the Pickford reading room out the back, which is almost like going into something like Harry Potter. It's all like, Google it.
Oh my God, I can't believe I'm hearing about this for the first time. Yeah, because the Birds of America is, I think it's the most expensive book in existence for what that's worth.
£1 million or something they paid for it.
Exactly. It's incredibly rare. I mean, Liverpool Library obviously didn't pay that. It was another buyer for another copy. But yeah, what I love about it is it's printed in it's so big. It's printed in a size called double elephant folio, which
really?
is great. I mean, what a great name. And yeah, it's incredibly rare, and I didn't know that Liverpool had one. I need to go and check it out immediately.
Yeah, it's stunning. My daughter lives up there, and we went to see it probably about, I think she was at uni, probably about when she started at uni, about 6-7 years ago. And it is just like, whoa, the place is like, yeah, it's just amazing, but it's so big, it's absolutely huge.
And it's beautiful.
There's only 120 in the world or something.
So there's so few, and the drawings are beautiful. I mean, you can get them as postcards. I actually lean back and grab this. I have a print. I actually don't even know if this is Audubon, but it's certainly a vintage bird print. So
that's
beautiful.
I mean, if you go to Liverpool again, definitely.
I will.
Yeah.
I definitely will.
If it's in your book, I mean, I'm not saying that, you could always sort of like, oh, it's in my book.
Can I take this home with me? Can I just carry it out the door? Yeah, I love it. It's in the cage as well, in a box. That's great.
You need a big bag.
Gonna need a bigger bag. Yeah.
So that was really lovely. Like, so to sort of read about that, because he apparently went to Liverpool. He arrived in Liverpool, so because I guess it was a big port back in the day.
Cool. So, oh my God, amazing! I love that. Thank you so much.
That's okay. So I'm glad that because I didn't know whether that was like whether you'd been before or whether that was sort of an inspiration. So
no, I'm just seen it on Google, which is not the same. So
Well, I think there's like a digital version of it at the Walker, which is the art gallery in Liverpool.
Okay, I need to. That's my weekend plans. So thank you.
Right, let's go back to this is your second book. Your first book was a thriller, The Dictator's Wife. So was it a very different process with that one? Because I mean, you've got mystery, haven't you? Sorry, I was going to say this is mystery, but it's not thriller in the sort of traditional sense of the word, is it? So, but is it different? Was it very different to write?
Yeah, it's interesting because like on the surface, I think it comes across as quite different. But when I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, it's very much the same. As in it's the subject matter is incredibly different. The content, as you say, one is more of a thriller, this is more of a suspense kind of mystery. But at the same time, they're both gothic, claustrophobic environments. They're both about, people who are or the kind of concerned with protagonists who are in some way locked in themselves. And there's an unfurling of some kind of mystery, so in a sort of strange climb. So in that sense, I was suddenly like, oh my God, maybe they're much more similar than I realized. That's probably just because I'm obsessed with books like Rebecca and Lady Audley's Secret and all these fantastic novels of the past. So yeah, that's kind of where I've been coming from.
I think Gothic is definitely having like a renaissance as well, isn't it? I mean, I love Gothic. Jane Eyre and all those sorts of, the all the Brontes. I love them. And I think, and also sort of spooky, sort of not horror, but that sort of unsettling, I think, is really sort of popular as well. And I think, I mean, any book that's got a book in it is amazing.
Well, there's all that sort of, dark academia stuff as well that's going on.
It's fun. It's nice. That's quite a new one, isn't it? It's like the Australian noir that was, a few years ago.
Exactly.
But I think you obviously wrote it as, you wanted it to be. You didn't write it because you wanted it to fit neatly into a...
No, it's just what comes out, sadly. As I said, I'd love to write something, sort of contemporary that I don't have to research at all. It's just kind of based on my life experience. But no, straight to the Gothic castles. Here we go. So.
No, we love it. I think we all love a Gothic castle. We all, definitely all the squad love a Gothic castle. So, I'm sort of almost worried to ask is, are you writing at the moment?
Maybe talking to my editor. So I'm developing an idea for the third book, and that's basically done. So need to have those conversations over the next few weeks. But I'm quite excited. I think it'll be, again, sort of female led. Some present day, some in the past. Quite a lot to do with clocks, if that helps. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, it'll be standalone again. It won't be a follow-on or anything.
And your husband's got the duster and the sort of the
I think he'd quite like to have a break for a bit. Maybe I should do some housework in the meantime for another book.
Yeah, oh God, not another one.
Exactly, like carry on.
I'm just looking at the time, and it's 8:20, which is amazing. I can't believe that's gone so quickly. I've got a couple of questions that others. So Beth, another member of the squad, said she loves the way that the botany in the book is mixed in with the Gothic. What was your sort of inspiration for that?
Oh, well, I was reading about all these old-timey botanists. Everyone from Alfred Russel Wallace and Charles Darwin to sort of older, sort of medieval explorers, and looking at their beautiful drawings and again, this sort of age of discovery and wonder. So I just had a lot of fun, and plants are so fascinating, metaphorically, you can do so much with them. I mean, the first lines of the book are about, living, a lie is like a plant, and everyone's lie looks different. It can be like geraniums, or it can be like these sort of vines that wrap their way through you. So I just had a really fun time, and again, I wanted to give Emily, a real purpose to her. I didn't want her just to be adventuring around the place. I wanted her to have like a drive and a need to discover. This was the era of the plant hunters, which again is a great name. So definitely. I was thinking of have you been to the Lost Gardens of Heligan down in Cornwall? No, but I've heard about them. These are all great recommendations. So I need to go.
Because that's like really fascinating, because that was obviously like someone who was a sort of plant hunter and brought things back, and then it sort of the estate went into like disrepair, and then the guy who did the Eden Project sort of helped restore it with one of the family, sort of one of a distant family, because he didn't have any children. And it's just, I mean, the plants there are absolutely insane.
I need to go. I mean, I spent some time at Kew and so on, but because of lockdown, I wasn't able to do nearly as much as I could have done. But that is, I need to go for sure. It sounds.
They have a pineapple house, which I think is the coolest thing, and they grow like it's like they literally have pineapples. The other day I saw on their social media that they had a pineapple there. And it's just like, it's just.
I need a pineapple house. I'm going to build myself an extension and just for the pineapples.
But those massive, I can't think what they're called, but those huge, like, they're almost like giant rhubarb. I think they've got probably a very fancy Latin name, but then they've got like a jungle jungle where you walk down, and it's just
Oh my God,
amazing.
amazing.
If you
Yeah,
love
that's some
plants,
leafy,
yeah.
leafy secrets. Incredible. Oh God, thank
Yeah, I
you.
think there's definitely a book there somewhere in that sort of, that's
Get out. Yeah, exactly. The irony is I'm terrible at gardening and know nothing about plants, so it was all a learning curve. So.
Oh, you've done a really good job. I think that's, that managed to sort of hide that over. We'll just sort of gloss over that.
Well, I'm interested. I'm just hopeless. I love gardeners' question time. I just don't know what they're saying.
No,
So
no. I'm from a family of gardeners, but my middle sister she kills everything, and if she watches it, she'll kill me. But sorry, Gemma, but she does.
Yeah, I've got cheese plants, and that's about it. That's all I can manage. You can just about see him in the corner there. So yeah,
misting going on with that one.
Exactly.
So just before we finish, do you have a favourite writer yourself? You mentioned sort of Du Maurier, and do you have you got like a sort of a writer that's inspired your writing, or is there lots?
Oh, it varies week by week, like it's, so at the moment I'm reading, a book by someone I've never read before, Jonathan Friedland, The Escape Artist, which I'm absolutely loving, about the first Jew to escape from Auschwitz, which is just blowing my mind at the moment. But I sort of have favorite books rather than favorite authors, because I'm quite fickle. So I read a great book last year, which was called Albert and the Whale, which is a biography of Albert Dürer, which I don't really know anything about Dürer. I don't read biographies, but it's so much more than that. It's incredible. But then, when I need some emotional support and some downtime, I'm big time Sarah J. Maas fan.
Oh, really? Yes. Well, you're not alone there. You are not alone there.
Honestly, it's like, when you're writing something, it's all quite hardcore. You just need a break. Yeah, that's what
Have you read them all?
Yeah.
I actually bought the first one of is it The Throne of Glass?
Yeah.
I've got that one, and I'm on holiday in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to read it. But I know I've been warned by other people that if I start, that will be it.
Very hard to stop. And there with Throne of Glass, like get to sort of book 3, and then you're really in there. First couple of books, sort of takes a bit of time, but yeah, I'm all in there and can't wait for the next one.
January the next one's out, I think.
I don't know. I think I honestly will take a day off though, whenever it is. I'm just gonna clear the decks.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been amazing. So before we go, would you like to do your sort of elevator pitch for your book for next Thursday? So if you want to order this beautiful book, well, my beautiful brief, but
yeah, here we go. Here's the final finished one as well.
Yeah, Freya's got the finished one, which is even more beautiful. We've got a snippet of beautiful, but she's got. Yeah, tell us why we should read it, and what a quick sort of recce of people who have just joined.
Yeah, so it's a gothic mystery and a bookish treasure hunt, I guess. A female explorer discovers an old book hidden in a Scottish castle, and that contains clues, a mystery about what happened to this woman who vanished 50 years before. And yeah, you should read it if you like mystery, if you like secrets, if you like reading about obsession and murder, and those sort of dark little things that we hide in our hearts. That would be something to pick up. Please do.
I think that's amazing. So yes, thank you for joining us. It's been
so
brilliant. Good luck.
Thank you. I will need it, and really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Squadpod. You've been brilliant. Thank you, Karen.
That's okay. And let me know if you go to the Liverpool, if you can get into the Liverpool Library to see the book.
I will. Honestly, I'm going to be banging on their door, so nobody else can be out. Thank you. Thank you very
everybody
much.
for joining.
Have a lovely evening.
We've got another chat. Yeah, thank you. We have another chat on Monday. And so if you can join us at 7:30 for that, we are going to be going thrillers with Natalie Simmons. So she's got a book called, and I'm going to really sorry if I get it wrong, but it's called Good Girls Die First, I think. I was thinking, is it last? And then I was like, I don't know. I haven't got it here. It's downstairs.
Great title either way. That is perfect. Sounds wonderful.
I think it's first. But yeah, so if you can join us then, please do. And good luck, Freya. I'm sure that it will go well because it is beautiful inside and out. So
So
thank you.
much. Thank you. Thank you everyone for listening. Thanks a lot. Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.
Have a lovely evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.